Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to build a simple yet powerful application using C# in Visual Studio 2022. This app will randomize a list in two ways, one where items are shuffled without any grouping, and the other where the list is grouped based on a selected item. Let's try the application. Now that the application is running perfectly, we need to copy a sample list of people to test it out. The first button is used to randomize the list in the left text box or the first column, and the result will be displayed in the right text box or second column. Next, let's try the second button, which allows us to group the list. By default, it is set to 2 groups, but if I want to change the number of groups, I can click the drop-down menu and select a number from 2 to 10. For example, if I want to group the list into 5 groups, I will select 5 and then click the button to group the list. After that, if I want to randomize the list again, I simply click the Randomize button. You can click the button as many times as you want to shuffle the list. If you want to download the application, the link is provided in the description. If you'd like to create the same application as shown in the first part, just follow along with this video. First, you need to download Visual Studio 2022 or an earlier version. If you haven't downloaded it yet, there is a video tutorial link in the description that you can follow to download and install Visual Studio 2022. Once you have downloaded Visual Studio, let's get started. First, open Visual Studio and create a new project. Name the project List Group Randomizer and wait for the project to load. Next, let's set up the window. Right-click on the form and select Properties to display all the properties of the window. Then, we need to modify some property values. The first property we need to edit is the start position. Set it to center screen so the application is centered every time it is launched. Next, we'll configure the maximize functionality of the application. Locate the Maximize box property and set it to false to disable maximizing. You can also set the Minimize box property to false to remove the minimize option, but I'll leave it enabled so only the close button remains. Lastly, update the Form Border Style property to Fixed Single. This ensures the application's window cannot be resized when running, keeping it fixed to the design layout. We're now ready with the window screen set up, so let's move on to designing the application. Start by dragging and dropping a rich text box onto the window you are designing. Add 2 rich text boxes. The first one will be used for inputting the list of names, and the second one will display the randomized or grouped list. Next, add 2 buttons, one for randomizing the list and another for grouping the names. Then, add a combo box to serve as a drop-down menu for selecting group numbers, 1 to 10. Include a label to notify users about the function of the application. I'll set the label text to Select Group Number here, to clarify that the combo box is the drop-down menu. For the buttons, update their text property to describe their functions, and change their name property to something more meaningful, making it easier to identify their purpose in the code later. You can also customize the font and size of the buttons and labels in the Properties panel. For my design, I'll make the text slightly larger to improve readability. design is complete, it's time to move to the coding section. To access the code, right-click on the form and select View Code, press F7, or double-click any button to automatically generate a click event for it. The first step in the code is to generate the button click events. After that, we set the font size of both Rich Text Box 1 and Rich Text Box 2 to Tahoma with a size of 10, although you can choose your own preferred font and size. Next, we move to the first button, which is used to randomize the entire list. Before doing so, we need to check for white space in Rich Text Box 1. To achieve this, we add a condition that checks if the string is null or contains only white space by using Rich Text Box 1.text. Inside this condition, we display a message box with the notification, "Please paste a list in the first rich text box before randomizing." The message box includes a title labeled "No Data," an OK button, and a warning icon. After showing the message box, we use the return statement to exit the method. Once the condition is satisfied, we proceed by retrieving all the lines from Rich Text Box 1 while removing any empty lines. This is done by using the following code: list of strings called original list equals rich text box 1.lines, filtered with the condition to exclude empty or white space lines, and then converted to a list. Next, we shuffle the list randomly by calling a method named randomizeList and passing the original list to it. However, since the randomized list method hasn't been defined yet, this will result in an error. Before defining the method, we ensure that the randomized list will be displayed in rich text box 2. To achieve this, we assign the randomized list as lines to rich text box 2 by converting it to an array. Now we create the randomized list method. Inside this method, we first create an instance of the random class to generate random numbers. Then we shuffle the list by ordering it using a lambda function and random numbers. Finally, we return the shuffled list. This ensures that the list is randomized and displayed correctly in rich text box 2. And that's it. We've successfully implemented the first button for randomizing the list. Now it's time to test it and see how it works. Now that the application is working as intended, let's move on to generating the drop-down menu. First, go back to the design view and double-click the window to create the Form 1 load event. This event ensures that every time the application runs, the Form 1 load code is executed first. Inside this method, we populate the drop-down menu by adding options for the number of groups. Next, set the default value of the drop-down menu to 2. Once that is done, copy the code from the first button's event and paste it into the second button's event. After pasting, make some modifications by removing the code that displays the randomized list. Instead, add a new line of code to get the selected number of groups from the drop-down menu. split the list into the selected number of groups. To display these groups in the second text box, add a loop to organize and format the output into group sections. Since an error will occur because the function to split the groups doesn't exist yet, we need to create that method. In this method, calculate the size of each group and divide the list accordingly. Once the groups are created, return the results to display them in the text box. With these changes, the second button is now functional. Once completed, test the application to ensure everything works as expected. If you liked this video, you could click like, subscribe, and share. If you liked this video, you could click like, subscribe, and share. If you need any application, just leave a comment, and I will try my best to fulfill your request. Thank you and see you in the next video.